What is going on, guys? We're going to talk about how the Democrats live in an alternate universe, part 3217. And to be fair, the Republicans live in an alternate universe too, but we're specifically going to talk about how Biden supporters live in an alternate dimension for various things. It's not just one thing. I could do a whole 3 hour podcast of all the insane things they believe that could objectively be proven incorrect. I'm not talking about what's your opinion on, the war on drugs? What's your opinion on the war on terror? Whatever, where there is no objective anything. There is objective, you do this and this will happen, and people ignore that. Specifically, I'm talking about the Joe Biden tweet that Kyle Rittenhouse was a white supremacist, and that the Kenosha shooting, which was the most clear-cut self-defense that you could possibly imagine. I mean, there are very few shootings that have that many camera angles and that much footage, and it just stuns me that you can look at the same thing and think that's not self-defense. But, sorry, I'm rambling. That Biden says that Kyle Rittenhouse is white supremacist and that the shooting was an act of white supremacy. I've been asking all of my radical liberal friends, which are increasingly dwindling by the day because I have had a number of them defriend me throughout just this year alone. Many have defriended me throughout the year, but specifically many have defriended me this year. And actually one friend of 8 years defriended me specifically over this exact question. He was spouting on Facebook, nonsensically, like a little beta cuck, that Kyle Rittenhouse was a white supremacist. And I simply asked, what proof do you have that he is a white supremacist? And this is right after it happened, this was weeks ago. He's like, I cannot believe that you're defending racist, the KKK, and white supremacists. I'm deleting you off my friend list. Good luck. I'm just like, asking for proof that someone is a white supremacist is in of itself defending white supremacy. That is the insane world that they live in. Any criticism, not even criticism, any questioning of the holy book of radical liberalism, which has decreed that Kyle Rittenhouse is white supremacist, any just questioning of it involves immediate condemnation, immediate name calling of very heinous, despicable names. Saying that someone supports the KKK or is racist or is a white supremacist, that is a horrific thing to say to someone with no proof. Of course, I've been called a racist every other day for the past, I don't know, lost track, 6 years or so, when nothing I have done has been judging people based on the color of their skin. But that's beside the point. Millions of Biden fans saw that tweet and either favorited it or retweeted it, or even if they, if you go to a random Biden supporter and say, hey, look at this, they're like, oh, I guess he was a bad guy, whatever. It's like, but what proof do you have? I have been asking everywhere for weeks now, any proof, anything. A tweet from Kyle, a picture, a saying, a picture that he was at a meeting, verification that he attended with this group, anything, any shred of evidence. And I have gotten nothing for weeks now. And yet we have all of these Biden supporters squawking in unison over all social media, not just Twitter or Facebook, that Kyle was a white supremacist. This kid who went through something that many people cannot fathom, especially these pussy fucking liberals who have never used violence to defend themselves in their fucking lives because they have had the most privileged, cushion-padded life that you could possibly think of. He's gone through, especially for a 17-year-old, a very harrowing ordeal, and he executed it with John Wick-like precision, and it was incredible what he did under the face of such immediate physical harm and threat to his life. And then to emerge from that, and then to see millions and millions of people, including the person running for president. This is some random fucking schmuck who's like, this guy's a white supremacist. I don't care what random person says on the internet. But when the person who is running for president of the United States, who is the former vice president, is calling you a white supremacist, when you're sitting there like, I literally have done nothing even associated with white supremacy, it's amazing. It is so depressing that this is the state of our country. Politicians have only lied. I have always lied. I'm not acting in amazement that politicians have lied about someone because I would be in amazement forever. That's not the point. But when someone running for president is dragging a kid's name through the mud, calling him one of the worst, like an actual white supremacist is one of the most deplorable people you can think of. With like racist and pedophiles are probably the worst people on the face of the planet you can live with. Rapists, murderers, whatever. Like that's the level, that's the company these people keep. To hold such abhorrent views is to be in that sphere. And for someone running for president to say that about a minor with absolutely no proof, and that's what kills me. That these people just believe this lie, this blatant, abhorrent lie, with no proof, and they don't care. Oh, Biden said it, so it must be true. Okay, where's the proof? Oh, I don't know. He just said it. Oh, he shot someone, so that means white supremacist. Wait. So that's an interesting point. I may have brought this up. I forget if I brought this up before, so I will mention it again. When was the last time that a white person used violence in self-defense and the media said it was justified? I'll wait because the answer is never. Never in their eyes is it appropriate for a white person to use violence, specifically exercising their Second Amendment rights in self defense. It is never, ever justified. Whenever a story like this happens, no matter what the circumstances, even if something as clear cut self defense as the Kenosha shooting, with mobs of angry people throwing bricks and hitting him with skateboards, you cannot get more clear cut self defense than that. Even that is not justified in the media's eye, and you will be dragged through the mud for doing so. Now, you may say, oh, he had no business being there. I'm sorry. Are we in a country where we're telling people where they can't and can't be? Sounds a little bit fascist to you. If Kyle wants to go a few miles from where he worked, again, like the George Floyd thing, everything about the initial case that we heard from the mainstream media was a lie. He didn't carry the gun across state lines. He didn't go far away from where he lived. He only lived a few miles away. He worked in the same town, or if not Kenosha, like the next town over. Like it was not far away from him. Like, oh, he crossed state lines. Yes, there's something called borders where you can go 2 miles and be in a completely different state and still be in your community. I know that's I guess liberals never looked at a map. Well, they never opened a history book, so I'm assuming they've never seen a map in their lives. That he was looking for a fight. No, actually, he was part of a group that was called upon to help defend businesses because rioters were burning things down to the ground and beating up people and stabbing people, and the police are doing nothing about it. People act like the people he shot were just minding their business, peaceful protesters protesting for police reform and for Black Lives Matter. No, they were burning buildings down and beating people up in the street. And that's something, again, they live in an alternate reality where they act like none of that stuff was happening. The people he shot were not doing that at all. They were just innocent people, just doing their good deed, protesting for some righteous cause, and Kyle just came up on and shot him. It's just like, you have to deny so much video evidence, so many eyewitnesses accounts, so many verifiable police reports of buildings and cars being burned to be able to have that opinion. You have to deny reality of everything that constitutes reality. What you see with your own eyes with the videos, what other people saw, eyewitness accounts, police reports when it comes to what buildings and cars are being burned and what businesses are being looted. You have to deny all of that in order to think that they were just protesting for police reform and for Black Lives Matter. No, they weren't. They were committing violent acts against people and property. Sorry, that was long-winded. Again, this is a very long-winded. I tend to ramble and expound upon points where I could be very more precise, but very more precise. Wow, I can talk. Anyway, the second point is what I said a couple minutes ago, where the media never sees a white person using violence, self-defense as justified, is because they are trying to subconsciously equate in people's heads that white people using violence as self-defense is white supremacy. That's what Joe Biden was subconsciously saying when he tweeted that out, that Kyle is a white supremacist. Not because he actually had any white supremacist views or that he actually thought white people were better than any other race, but because he used a gun in self-defense against specifically a mob that was aligned with Democrats and Joe Biden. Okay, like it's all politicized. If a white Antifa member, for example, used violence in self-defense against, let's say hypothetically, this never happens, by the way. Some people attacked a peaceful Antifa demonstration. Again, never happens. Let's say it did, and a white Antifa member used violence in self-defense. Of course, Joe Biden would have a completely 180 different opinion of the situation. But because Kyle used violence against a left-wing mob. Therefore, it's white supremacy. So white people using violence in self-defense is white supremacy, according to the Democrats. That's why they called the couple in St. Louis a white supremacist couple, because they didn't even use violence. They simply exercised their Second Amendment rights to protect themselves and their property. Well, that is a heinous, abhorrent sin in the radical ideology slash religion of the radical left. White people, you can't do that, especially against Black Lives Matter. You have to let them do whatever they want to you, beat the crap out of you, burn your house, rape your wife. Otherwise, you are a racist white supremacist. That is what they are implicitly saying. You're saying, Robert, what are you talking about? That's a right-wing conspiracy theory. What are you talking? They never say that. No, they don't say that outright. But by condemning every single time a white person uses self-defense against anyone remotely left-leaning, that is what they are subconsciously, implicitly saying. I know it's intangibles and it's very difficult for leftist retards to figure out non-tangible things because their low IQ prevents them from thinking of things that don't actually exist. But when you say a bunch of things and exclude one thing constantly, 100%, like straight cut, you never ever mention this one thing when you're condemning things, for example, then you are implicitly saying that you support that thing. For example, I don't know, let's say Susie, Brian, and Lucy are in class, and the teacher constantly says how Susie and Lucy are doing so good in school, how they are getting such good grades, have good behavior, and yet Brian is basically doing the exact same thing, but he never acknowledges that Brian does anything good. Well, guess what that kid is implicitly, not explicitly, but implicitly getting the message from the teacher is that he is not as good as Lucy and Susie. He is not doing as good job. That Lucy and Susie are better than he is. That is how people understand language. If you constantly say how Hispanic people are amazing and do nothing wrong and they're victims and they're oppressed and they should be given all this stuff, and Black people are amazing and victims, they should be given all this stuff and they're oppressed and they're doing so good in life, and Asian people are doing so good in life and they're oppressed and they're doing all these things, and you constantly say this 24/7 over the media, constantly to millions and millions of people, but you never, ever, ever say that about white people, then what are you implicitly saying? That white people don't deserve all this stuff, that they're not as good as the other races, they don't deserve all these things. No, they can't go up in the media and just say it directly. Otherwise, that would be too transparent. That would be too easy to spot as racist. So they implicitly say other things. There's a saying that what you say is just as important as what you don't say. When the Democrats, for months and months and months of these riots, which has caused millions, if not tens of millions, maybe in the hundreds of millions, I don't think it's reached the billions yet, but I'm pretty sure it's in the tens of millions or hundreds of millions of damage. Dozens of people killed, thousands of people without jobs, and not a word from anyone in the top Democratic leadership. That tells you something. That is implicitly telling you that they support them. And then when called down on it, like in the first debate, Biden says, oh, Antifa is just an idea. Really? That's another thing, that Biden supporters have to live in an alternate universe in which, on the one hand, white supremacy is rampant in this country. Trump is a white supremacist. White supremacy hold all the power in the country. We live in a white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. Everything throughout the laws is white supremacist. The police are white supremacists. The courts are white supremacists. On the other hand, Antifa is just an idea. And all this proof about their organization, about their membership, about how they initiate people, all of the attacks they have coordinated on people, they have brutally maimed dozens and dozens of people, including reporters who just report on them, punching them in the face so hard with bricks that they have to get stitches in their mouth and their eyes, and hitting people with bike locks in the head. That's all just an idea. It's not actually an organization. The black blocs that first showed up, I first saw them in 2017 whenever Trump was being inaugurated in DC. Them fighting with the police in organized phalanx-like fashion, the black box, hence they were people in a box like a phalanx, fighting with police, burning down buildings, smashing windows, beating up random people for no reason. That's all an idea. That doesn't exist. There's no organization. There's no actually anyone in Antifa. It's just an idea. That is the clown world, alternate universe Biden supporters have to live in. Now, how could you live with that with the mountain of evidence that is to the contrary. Well, you just don't think about it. You just don't talk about it. That's why Democrats never talk about Antifa. They never talk about Black Lives Matter murdering people in the streets and burning buildings. They never, ever talk about it. Because if they do, they have to be faced with the fact that they are making shit up and live in an alternate universe. So they better just, if we just don't talk about it, then we don't have to deal with the fact that we're massive hypocrite retards. So they never do. And they attack Trump for being a white supremacist, which is he has only disavowed like not even half a dozen times, a dozen plus times. In fact, Chris Wallace, who asked him that question in the debate, asked him in 2017 the exact same fucking goddamn question, and Trump said, "I disavow them. I do not support them." Of course, Chris Wallace has the IQ of a maggot, so I'm getting towards the end of the video here, so I'm letting loose a little bit. If you've gotten this far, I guess you don't mind me cursing, but these guys just piss me off so much because they are so flagrantly stupid. Not just stupid, but flagrantly double standard. They have such, I know I've said the word abhorrent like 5 times, but it is. This stuff is abhorrent. It's disgusting. They have such disgusting double standards that is so easy to dismantle them. And then they get all defensive whenever you dismantle their double standards. You're like, oh, you're racist, you're a bigot, you're a white supremacist, you're a homophobe, whatever fucking insult. They just throw insults at you, and then that's their argument. Oh, look at this complete double standard I have towards Trump versus Democrats. Okay, well, here's your double standard. You were racist. And that's the sum of political arguments in 2020. Like, it's just, I have had more intelligent conversations with children about politics than what I have with Democratic adults, which speaks volumes to their brain capacity. We're getting up close to 20 minutes here, so I guess that's the sum of it. It's just, this is the world we live in where we don't live in a country anymore where we're like, what's the best way to handle a budget? Well, I think option A, or I think option B. Okay, what are the pros and cons for option A? Here they are. Okay, well, I think the cons of A they overshadow the pros of A. So that's why I'm going with B. Here are the pros and cons for B. And you have like a semi-intellectual conversation about how to do like the budget for a year, for example. That used to be politics like before, I don't know, let's just say before 2000, let's say before Bush. I don't know. It was kind of semi-lucid after then too, but let's just say before 2001 where everything went to fucking shit when it comes to the government. Not that everything was peachy before then. And you were like, well, I saw this. I saw adults have lucid conversations about stuff. And sometimes, yeah, they disagreed vehemently. And then they didn't like each other's opinions. And they got a little heated. At the end of the day, they shook hands like, I don't agree with you, but here are my points. May the best man win. Let's go to the polls. Let's vote. Let's see whose senators get in office, and we'll see whose plan wins the day, A or B, when it comes to the economy. And it went like this with every single subject you can talk about. That's how it used to be. I saw it with my own eyes, time after time. I used to have semi-intelligent conversations with people about politics in the mid to late 2000s. And then right about, I don't know, like 2013, 2014 was when it really got off the rails. Like, this is a relatively recent thing. Oh, let's just close with this. So these are the number of Americans who think political violence is justified. In November of 2017, which is a little less than 3 years ago, it was only, I can't see this fucking graph. What is that, 8? Yes, here we go. In November of 2017, only 8% of both parties thought that political violence is justified. In December of 2019, the last normal month we had in this graph, 16% of Democrats and 15% of Republicans thought that political violence is justified. And now, today, a whopping 33% of Democrats and 36% of Republicans think that political violence is justified. So that is let me do some math, that is a times 5, roughly. That is a 500% increase in the justification from just 3 years ago. Are you fucking kidding me? From December of 2019 to June of 20, it basically doubled. We live in a country, and I know I spare Republicans of this living in a false reality, but in short summary, if you're a Republican and think Donald Trump like supports gun rights and is going to reduce the debt and actually build the wall, you also live in a fantasy land which is massively retarded. It has nothing to do with reality. So don't think I spared you. I can do a whole video on that if someone wants me to do that, on how Republicans live in a false reality. I specifically, again, wanted to mention the Biden thing, so that's why I talked about this. But and as you can see in the graph, it's pretty even. If he's like, oh, it's just the liberals who are violent. Republicans don't want violence. Well, it's true as of right now, the liberals are the one committing the overwhelming majority of violence. But thought-wise, they're pretty much even. It doesn't mean that. So what that means, that Republicans can change thought into action whenever they want, and then you have a whopping 36% of them thinking that violence is justified. Political violence is justified against their opponents. That is a jump in 7 months. That is a double in 7 months, from December of 2019 to June of 2020. We live in a fucked up country. There's nothing you can't mince words and say anything different. Not because of our institutions, not because of our constitution, not because of the way it's set up, because of the people who are in it are flagrantly not following. They're un-American. The vast majority of Americans are un-American. They are exhibiting un-American ideals. We live in a country where the vast majority of people do not agree with the ideals and values and morals that were founded by this country, and that's why we live in a fucked up country.